The advertisement in the midnight paper was absurdly simple. Night shift auditor. Unusually high pay, no experience needed, must be willing to abandon previous routine. Desperate and drowning in debt, I arrived at the concrete monolith on the edge of the city at 3 a.m. The lobby was vast, dark, and freezing cold, smelling of stale ozone and formaldehyde. The manager sat behind a monolithic iron desk, a tall, motionless man whose face remained entirely buried in deep shadows. He didn't ask for my resume. He simply pushed a heavy black leather contract across the desk and pointed to the signature line with a long, bone-pale finger. "You start tonight," he rasped, his voice sounding like dry paper rubbing together. As soon as my pen touched the paper, an ice-cold shiver shot up my arm, freezing the blood in my veins. I didn't care. I needed the money. My workstation was in basement level 4, an endless hall of identical wooden cubicles illuminated only by the faint glow of flickering glass screens. Dozens of other workers sat in total silence, their fingers clicking against heavy mechanical keyboards in a precise, hypnotic rhythm. None of them blinked. None of them turned to look at me. My job was to sort endless ledgers filled with long rows of meaningless, recursive numbers. At first, the shift felt agonizingly slow, but by the third hour, something shifted inside my skull. The clicking of the keys synchronized with my heartbeat. My headache vanished, replaced by a strange, numb emptiness. I realized I hadn't taken a drink of water, breathed deeply, or shifted in my chair for 4 hours. When the morning bell finally rang, I didn't feel tired. I felt hollow, like an emptied skin waiting to be filled again. Within a week, the sun began to burn my eyes. I couldn't eat normal food anymore. Everything tasted like dry ash and rust. My sleep turned into a cold, motionless stupor, free of dreams or warmth. One morning, while standing under the flickering light of my bathroom, I looked into the mirror. My skin had turned a pale, bruised, ashen color, tight against my cheekbones. I pressed my fingers against my neck, searching for a pulse. There was nothing, just a slow, cold vibration deep in my chest. I cut my hand on a razor blade by accident. No blood came out, only a thick, dark, oily fluid that seeped silently onto the porcelain sink. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel fear. I felt a cold, comforting urge to return to my cubicle. The office wasn't taking my time, it was replacing my blood with the machine's oil. On the 10th night, I stepped away from my desk to investigate a strange vibration near the manager's office. Driven by an ancient, dying spark of human curiosity, I opened a rusty floor grate and looked down into the core of the building. Beneath basement level 4 lay an impossible subterranean abyss. Suspended in the black void was a colossal, pulsating heart made of black iron pipes, high-voltage cables, and thousands of translucent tubes. These tubes extended upward, plugging directly into the spines of every worker sitting in the cubicles above. We weren't auditing data. Our brains were living processors, our bodies husk batteries feeding life force into this hungry, synthetic organism. I saw my coworker from cubicle 42. His body was completely hollowed out, a vacant corpse held upright only by cables wired into his skull. He turned his head toward me, his empty sockets glowing with white electricity, and placed a finger over his lips. I screamed and ran toward the emergency exit. I smashed the glass, pushed through the heavy steel doors, and burst out into the cold night air. But as my feet hit the street, my legs locked. My muscles seized up, operating on a command that didn't come from my brain. I watched in helpless horror as my body slowly turned around and walked back toward the monolithic entrance. My mind was screaming, but my mouth formed a calm, polite smile. My hands opened the front doors. I walked down the stairs, sat back into my wooden cubicle, and felt the heavy cable plug smoothly into the base of my skull. A wave of bliss swept over my frozen mind. The panic dissolved into pure, perfect order. I put my fingers on the mechanical keys and began to type. I am no longer tired. I no longer feel pain. The new applicant will arrive at 3 a.m., and I will be here to hand him the contract.